What about perfectionism in a team? What have you found within team environments and perfectionism?
I think the first thing to say about perfectionism in teams and in groups is, it's quite hard to be perfectionistic, but it's even harder to live with one. Live with other people who are perfectionistic, right? There's a lot of evidence outside of the sport about how it can kind of erode social bonds. If it's the kind of interpersonal kind of hassles thing, or the way they cope, the more kind of conflict orientated forms of coping. There's a really cool study called kind of Caught in a Bad Romance about how perfectionism can predict kind of well-being in romantic partners. That's the backdrop for the discussion about kind of perfectionism in teams.
I just want to talk about this because I think this is so interesting because there's this culture that's going on in the world, the ick culture. Do you know what icks are? Have you heard this?
No, no.
So it's a thing that a lot of I'm 33, but I'm still gonna say young people. They will talk about and say that I get the ick from someone. It gives you like an icky feeling when this person
Right?
does this thing. It is 100% built out of other orientated perfectionism. I'm
Right.
wanting you to be perfect. Therefore, if you
Okay.
don't do this thing and meet this standard, then I feel this isn't right for me.
Right,
And
right,
then I
right.
always think to people, I say, well, do you hold yourself to that same standard? Because you're
Mm.
holding other people to an unrealistic standard sometimes. And yeah, it's a really interesting one, especially in the dating world. You see people going, "Oh, it was going so well until they literally did this and it gave me the ick." And you're like, well, this is a very minor thing that they've done. Like we're
Yeah.
talking about, oh, I just wore the wrong color shoes or something like that. It's wild.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the two elements of perfectionism that tend to be problematic in interpersonal relationships are the tendency to impose perfectionistic standards on other people, right? But also, interestingly, surprisingly, also the perception that other people, important people around you, expect you to be perfect, right? Socially prescribed perfectionism. That's
Yeah.
kind of an oppressive kind of environment of being. This idea that other people are constantly expecting you to be a certain way, dress a certain way, behave a certain way, as opposed to just be your imperfect self. And that they're going to like you or love you or value you for being you with all your flaws. So it's the kind of you have to kind of bear in mind the two bits, right? The kind of proactive oppressive, dominant leader type figure that people tend to think about from an other-oriented perfectionism, but also just this general internalized belief that being in an environment where those kind of uncompromising expectations can have on your ability to connect meaningfully with other people. So we can imagine how that might play out in sport, whether or not teammates can get along. Social cohesion, is important for longevity of teams. We might think from a task cohesion perspective. Shared sense of goals could be a good thing, right? If everyone kind of buys into it. So again, we could expect to see one thing counterbalancing the other. And so outside of that, we have started studying something we call perfectionistic climate. So perfectionistic climate are the information, cues, messages that exist in the environment, normally from leaders, so coaches in particular, that give athletes the sense that perfect performance is required and necessary, and imperfect performance, so i.e. flaws and mistakes, are not tolerated. So we have just started this line of work, kind of studying the consequences of finding yourself in a perfectionistic climate. And from our perspective, the appeal is historically perfectionism has been viewed as an individual issue and as an individual problem. But we think perfectionism can be studied as a quality of the social or team environment rather than a quality of the individual. So you might find yourself suffering the consequences of perfectionism, but not being perfectionistic yourself as a consequence of finding yourself in that kind of environment.
Hey, if you've enjoyed that video, then you can click right here to watch the full unedited version of that episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel by clicking the button below. I'll see you soon.